Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. As you can see, I've got Salman Mir here. I've got an interesting couple of topics for you. Salman, let's talk a bit about what Teddy Atlas had to say. Teddy Atlas went in. He said this guy, and I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to offend any of you British fans across the pond, but Anthony Joshua is very, very overrated. He said, who has he beat? He goes, he's beat nobody. He goes, when it's all said and done, he got beat by Andy Ruiz, who was let's be honest, lived in his kitchen. And then he said that, when he came up against an elite fighter, he was outclassed twice. He goes, he's beaten nobody. Charles Martin was effectively, he was saying he was a bum. He goes, we beat Joseph Parker, but, Parker's not really impressed. Vladimir Klitschko, although it was a good win, it was old man. He goes, who's Anthony Joshua beat? He's an overrated fighter. So, man, what is your take on what Teddy Atlas said there? Do you think Anthony Joshua is an overrated fighter?
I wouldn't say he's overrated. I would say he's a good fighter. I wouldn't say he's on the level of Fury or Usyk. But to say, he's not even a decent fighter, it's ridiculous. Like,
well, Salman,
the thing is, like, he lost to Usyk, fair enough, but to just say, oh yeah, he's a crap fighter, he's rubbish, like, I don't understand people, but it is what it is.
But what it means is, what he probably means is overrated in the sense the hype that he was getting. I mean, it depends on how highly you rated Joshua. It depends on how highly you rated him. Do you think Joshua is getting too much stick now, or do you actually think?
I think he's getting more stick than he deserves. To be honest, if you look at the heavyweight landscape and you look at the other fighters and who they fight compared to who he's fought, that's just my opinion. The other guys, like if you look at Fury or Wilder, they've taken very risk-free fights. When Fury fought Deontay Wilder, after that, who did he fight? If Joshua fights those guys, he bowls them over as well. So, it is what it is.
Salman, what you got to realize is this as well, that Anthony Joshua's got 3 losses now, and he hasn't even fought Fury or Wilder yet. So, a lot of people will think he loses those 2 fights, and
I don't think he beats Fury. I think Fury beats everyone.
Wilder's a dangerous fight.
He could lose that one as well if he gets clipped. But yeah, I don't think the Wilder fight's ever going to happen anyway. So I think the Fury one's more likely to happen.
But Salman, the question is AJ overrated? Did he get more credit than what he deserved? And was he a hype guy in the sense that he wasn't quite as good as he was advertised?
Probably to a certain extent. But yeah, he's still like, maybe if you're talking about, is he a great fighter? Probably not a great elite fighter, but he is a good fighter. People were saying Dillian White's a good fighter, so Joshua's better than a Dillian White. I don't know. Everyone's obviously got an opinion, but obviously, when you fight good fighters back to back, keep fighting good fighters, you're not going to win every one. Usyk's obviously, he's one of the greatest fighters of all time, so it's not a bad. Well, if you lose to Fury, Fury's probably the best heavyweight at the minute. So if he fights Fury next, most people will write him off against Fury. To be honest, I personally think Fury will win that fight, because that's probably his next fight, as they're saying. But personally, if I was guiding his career, I wouldn't even fight Fury next. To be honest, I would look to rebuild, gain some confidence, and then probably go in with whoever's there at the time. But if he goes in with Fury, I think he'll have 3 losses in a row, in my opinion. But obviously, he just wants a challenge now. He's probably thinking he's not afraid of losing. He wants to fight the best. Whether he's off 2 losses, 3 losses, he just wants to fight the best. That's just how he is. He's not thinking about it, all right, is this good for my long term? He's probably thinking that I want to fight Fury, because he's the best available guy. And if he can get it at 60-40, he's happy with 60-40. I think it is what it is.
Do you think that...
You can't say that, he's ducked a challenge or he's not willing to take a challenge. No chance. He's one fighter that you can say will fight anyone. And if he fights Fury next, it proves that.
Salman, I do think that Joshua is getting a lot of criticism now. But Teddy Atlas, we know Teddy Atlas, he doesn't hold back. And he's basically saying that this guy isn't what people were advertising him. He's a good fighter, he's done good things. But, Teddy Atlas said he didn't really win the gold medal. He was gifted that. He got beat. He said I commentated that fight and he shouldn't have won the gold. He was beaten by the other guy. But because it was in London, he got the decision. Otherwise, he didn't win that. So Teddy Atlas feels that Anthony Joshua's overrated. He feels that he's been gifted a lot. He's because of his because how big he goes. Not necessarily. What I think Atlas said something on the lines of, just because you're a big name and you bring in a lot of money, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a great fighter. And I would say Joshua's a good fighter. I wouldn't say he's a great fighter. I think there's too many flaws in his game. I think he's done well. I think you've got to give Joshua credit because he's done very well from the fact that he's not been boxing from a young kid. You know, this is a guy that maybe started boxing very late. Whereas, you know, if you look at some of the great fighters that won Olympic medals, they were boxing from a very early age. So Joshua's done very well for himself. But there's a lot of weaknesses and flaws against elite level guys. You can't really see him winning because his stamina's poor. You know, there's question marks around, you know, his punch resistance. He's a bit, you know, he doesn't have even his boxing skills. Although he's a decent boxer, he's a better boxer than Wilder. I wouldn't say he's an all-round great boxer and he's got a great boxing IQ. He needs guidance. Mentally, there's question marks that he's mentally a bit weak. What would you say?
Yeah, probably. But as I said, that's when he fights the best of the best. Not when he's fighting Joseph Parker, Alexander Povetkin, you know, those sort of fighters. I would say he needs guidance against when he's fighting like some of the greatest fighters, you know, of probably the last 10 years, like Usyk and Fury. I don't personally think that if he fights some of the other guys, I think he can beat a lot of the other guys, in my opinion. But now that he's lost 2 times to Usyk, people are obviously going to say, oh yeah, now this guy can beat him, that guy can beat him. That's just how people are, to be honest.
But there are guys that can beat him in the heavyweight division. There are guys, you know.
Apart from Fury and Wilder, I think personally Joshua can beat. He has a ability to beat all the rest. And if you don't believe that, then silly.
No, but Salman, there's also guys like Joe Joyce that are very dangerous out there. There's guys like Dillian White in the rematch that are dangerous out there.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying he has.
Remember, this guy was beaten by Andy Ruiz. So it's not like Andy Ruiz. You know, Andy Ruiz just fought a 50-year-old Ortiz and had a life and death with him. I mean, you know, Ortiz was outboxing Ruiz, and Ortiz is, we know, near 50. So let's not make out like, you know, Andy Ruiz was some great fighter. He wasn't. And, you know, he beat Anthony Joshua, knocked him out. You know, so there's nothing to say if someone like Luis Ortiz 7-8 years ago went in there with Anthony Joshua, he couldn't have beaten Anthony Joshua. So this is what I'm trying to say. It's like, although he's fought a lot of good...
that would be a good fight. I think Joshua should fight Ortiz now. Because if you land a shot, you know, anything's possible.
Ortiz ain't got a chin at this point.
Yeah, but the thing is, you got punch power. You land a shot, you could knock somebody out. It's a heavyweight division. That's how I see it. You know, from what I've seen of his fight against Ruiz, you know, you would probably say Ruiz is probably tougher than Joshua. And if Ortiz lands, maybe he might knock Joshua out.
Ortiz ain't got a chin anymore, man.
But I do think, yeah, as you said, I think if Joshua landed on him, I think his legs would, like, because Ruiz isn't a bigger puncher than Joshua.
Let's not forget Martin was rocking this guy with the jab at this point. Ortiz ain't got a chin.
You would obviously favour Joshua, but it's still a, you know, he's coming off 2 losses, so, you know.
It's an interesting fight. It will just.
But Luis Ortiz will need to knock him out. Luis Ortiz isn't gonna.
But Ortiz ain't got a chin anymore. He ain't got punch resistance anymore.
I think.
Maybe 7-8 years ago.
Yeah, maybe.
Would have been different. But, you know, now I think Ortiz ain't got a chin. You know, maybe an Andy Ruiz fight. The trilogy. Would that make sense?
Maybe, but I don't see that happening. I think, you know, he'll probably fight Deontay Wilder, to be honest.
That's a good fight. But coming back to the main question about Joshua being overrated, it depends. When you say someone's overrated, it depends on how highly you rated him. I mean, that means Teddy Atlas, if he's saying he's overrated, maybe he rated Joshua initially. Or maybe he felt the hype that he got was unwarranted because his ability didn't match the hype that he was getting. But because of the commercial power and how big Joshua was commercially, he got a lot of opportunities. But then let's not forget, Teddy Atlas was also a guy that didn't really rate Tyson Fury, who was always picking against Fury. He thought Wilder would beat him the second time. He said Wilder would beat him the third time. I don't know if he picked Wilder to beat him the third time, but he definitely picked Wilder to beat him the second time. But he kept picking against Fury. So the point I'm trying to make is this, that, you know, Teddy's got his opinion, and maybe, like I said, I don't know what he's obviously saying because the hype that Joshua got, but I think Joshua is not really overrated. I think there was a lot of question marks around Joshua early on in his career. It was just that he was winning and knocking guys out. But I think people like that, knowledgeable boxing fans like me, or like I know other people, they always view Joshua as a vulnerable fighter. But now it's those vulnerabilities have just come to the surface. But they were always going to come to the surface, and they were always there because we saw them against Klitschko, we saw them against, Povetkin early on, we saw them against Takam late on, we saw them against Dillian White. Generally the real elite fighters, you don't really see them in that much trouble throughout their career. Yeah, they have moments like Mayweather, like Crawford. They have even Usyk for that matter. Whenever we ever seen him in trouble or in huge adversity, Fury is one that we have because Fury wasn't as good as he is now. Also, Fury is very sloppy. His concentration at times isn't the greatest, and that's why he gets himself into trouble. I've said this before about Fury. Fury's very sloppy, hence why he's been dropped. Plus the heavyweight division, the guys are bigger, stronger, they can hit you and hurt you. But in terms of Joshua's been in trouble. He's been hurt. He's been put down, too many times and just sometimes the decisions he makes in the ring. He doesn't seem like the smartest guy. So in the ring, yeah, I don't think Joshua's an elite fighter, but I think Joshua's a good fighter. He's done well. He's had a decent career for the ability that he's got. I think he's had a very good career. And I don't think he's overrated. I think he's achieved I think he's actually underrated. I think he's achieved a lot more than what his ability. I think he's gone above and beyond.
I just personally think now, obviously, like with Fury and Usyk now champions, I think the champions before weren't as good. So, for example, when he fought Klitschko, obviously Klitschko was old, and then obviously he fought Parker for the WBO, right? But then obviously when Fury came back, and obviously now Fury's champion, now Usyk's come and he's unified. The heavyweight division in terms of the fighters that are champions now, they're a lot harder to beat. This isn't Joseph Parker holding a WBO. These are a lot more elite level, more elite level guys. Fury and Usyk for sure, 100%. I just think I think those guys were overrated, like Joseph Parker. To be honest, I don't think they were going to beat him. The guys that were going to beat him are the ones now. So Usyk, Fury, and probably Wilder. To be honest, it's sad that we didn't see the Joshua Wilder fight 4 years ago, because then we would have either seen which one of those guys would have been undisputed. But now, obviously, I don't know whether we'll ever get to see that fight. I don't think we will. I think there's more of a chance of Fury and Joshua getting it on, to be honest. Hopefully the fight does happen, to be honest. It's a mega fight at the end of the day, whether Joshua's lost 3 times, 4 times. People are still going to tune in, and watch that fight. It's still a massive fight, between two Brits.
Leave your thoughts, guys. Let us know what you think. Do you think AJ is overrated, or do you think that he actually is underrated? Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.